There's a quiet truth that lingers beneath the noise of life. A force not loud, not demanding, not obvious, but one that waits for you to notice it. It is the truth that your life bends according to the posture you carry inside. Carl Jung once wrote that the psyche is reality. By this he meant that what happens within you is not a mere reflection of the world outside. It is a lens through which the world itself comes alive. You are never only reacting to circumstances. You are constantly co-creating them through the way you see, interpret, and embody reality. Most people live as if they are victims of circumstance. They wake up scanning the horizon for what might go wrong. They expect traffic, expect arguments, expect disappointment, expect rejection. And the tragic thing is, they are often right, not because fate has targeted them, but because their posture toward life has already told the unconscious what to look for. They have rehearsed a story of defeat so often that their very nervous system aligns with it. But imagine another posture. Imagine waking each morning with a different inner stance. Instead of whispering, "I hope nothing bad happens," you declare, "Everything conspires in my favor. Life is on my side. Whatever unfolds, I will find meaning. I will find direction. I will find my path through it." At first glance, this may seem naive, a kind of blind optimism, perhaps even foolishness. But Jung would remind us that symbols, attitudes, and beliefs are not surface-level tricks. They are gateways into the unconscious. When you act as if everything works out for you, you are not ignoring the reality of pain, struggle, or loss. You are choosing a new myth through which to interpret those very experiences. To act as if is not arrogance. It is not ignorance. It is not pretending that life is without storms. It is a sacred posture, a reclamation of your role as co-creator with the universe itself. Jung understood that we are not merely passive travelers on the road of life. We are participants in a dialogue between consciousness and the unconscious, between the individual and the collective, between the self we think we are and the deeper self that waits to be born. Acting as if everything works out is not about controlling life, but about aligning yourself with this dialogue. It is saying to the unconscious, "I trust you. I am willing to step forward as though the path is unfolding for me, even if I cannot yet see it." And in that trust, something shifts. Philosophers and psychologists have long wrestled with the idea of acting as if. William James, one of the great minds of psychology, once argued that if you want a quality, behave as if you already have it. If you want courage, act as if you are courageous. If you want faith, move as though faith already anchors you. Carl Jung deepened this idea, showing that as if is not only a trick of the mind, it is an invocation of archetypal forces. When you live as if life conspires in your favor, you are not just changing your outlook. You are summoning the hero within, the wise old man within, the self that knows more than your ego ever could. In Jungian language, the ego often clings to control. It wants proof before it believes. But the deeper self works in the opposite order. It calls you to believe before proof appears. It whispers, "Step forward," and then the ground will appear beneath your feet. To live as if is to obey that whisper. Of course, many will dismiss this. They will say, "You can't just act as if things work out. Life is cruel, unpredictable, merciless." And to some degree, they are right. Life is unpredictable. We will all face storms. But here's the crucial distinction. The storms are not optional, but our posture toward them always is. When you believe life is against you, every gust of wind feels like confirmation. When you believe life conspires for you, that same wind becomes a force that pushes you toward a new horizon. Cynicism pretends to be wisdom, but it is often just wounded hope. Jung saw this in patients who could no longer imagine possibility. They were so identified with disappointment that they could not conceive of a different script. To them, as if posture seemed childish. But Jung would remind us, the child archetype within is not weakness. It is renewal. It is the willingness to trust life again, even after betrayal. Every one of us already lives by a myth. Maybe your myth is, "Nothing ever works out for me." Maybe it is, "I always get abandoned." Maybe it is, "Success is for others, not for me." These myths are not written in stone. They are stories absorbed from family, culture, or past wounds. But here is the truth. you can choose a new myth. The myth of everything always works out for me does not mean you will never hurt again. It does not mean money will rain from the sky or doors will magically open without effort. What it means is that you will approach every hurt, every closed door, every setback with conviction that it contains meaning, that it is not the end of the story, but part of its unfolding. And when you live that way, something extraordinary happens. The psyche begins to reorganize itself. Opportunities that were invisible become visible. People are drawn to you, not because your life is perfect, but because your energy signals trust instead of fear. The unconscious responds to your posture, and the outer world quietly follows. So as we begin this journey into Jung's wisdom, I want to ask you something. What story are you living by right now? What posture greets you when you wake in the morning? Do you rise already anticipating defeat, or do you rise with a quiet courage that whispers, "Life is conspiring for me"? If these explorations speak to you, if you want to continue uncovering the deep truths Jung left behind, truths that help us live with more courage, meaning, and authenticity, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who might need this reminder, and let's walk this path together. Because what we are doing here is not fantasy. It is not blind positivity. It is practical philosophy, psychological alchemy, and spiritual truth converging into one. To act as if everything always works out for you is not to deny the storms. It is to walk into them with a different spirit. It is to believe that, even in the chaos, something is being shaped within you. It is to live not as a victim of fate, but as an author of destiny. And that choice, perhaps more than anything else, changes the story you will live. Carl Jung once said, "We do not see things as they are. We see them as we are." This is not just a poetic idea. It is a psychological law that shapes the very fabric of our reality. You and I may stand in the same place, witness the same event, and yet live two entirely different experiences. Why? Because the world is not neutral. It is filtered through our psyche, through the stories, wounds, hopes, and fears we bring to it. This is why two people can live under the same roof, and one will see nothing but obstacles while the other perceives opportunities. It is why one person sees rejection everywhere while another sees redirection. It is why one person sees chaos, and another sees a hidden pattern guiding them forward. The world bends to the posture you bring. Jung taught that much of what we see out there is actually a reflection of what lies in here. We call this projection. When a person believes the world is hostile, they begin to find hostility in every interaction. A neutral glance becomes a threat. A delayed text becomes evidence of rejection. A small challenge becomes confirmation that life is stacked against them. But when a person believes life conspires for their good, the same events take on new meaning. The delayed text is space to breathe. The challenge becomes an initiation. The closed door is not rejection but redirection. The external world has not changed. The inner narrative has. Acting as if everything works out is, in Jungian terms, an act of reclaiming projection. Instead of allowing fear and cynicism to color the world, you choose to project trust, openness, and resilience. And the extraordinary thing is that the unconscious responds, not only within yourself, but also in the people and opportunities around you. This principle is not just mystical. It is measurable. At Stanford University, researchers divided participants into two groups. Both groups were given the same set of puzzles. But one group was told the puzzles were diagnostic. They would measure intelligence. The other group was told simply to play, to explore. The outcomes were staggering. The group under evaluation pressure performed worse. They were slower, less creative, more rigid. But the group who believed the puzzles were simply a playground performed better. They were freer, more adaptive, more willing to try new paths. Same puzzles, same room, different perception, different outcome. This is what Jung meant by the psyche shaping reality. The world is not just out there. It is co-created by the meaning you bring into it. I once spoke with a woman who lived under the story of bad luck. Every missed bus confirmed her suspicion that life was against her. Every breakup added another brick to her wall of despair. Every setback whispered the same script. Why does this always happen to me? Her life became a closed loop. Every event was interpreted through the lens of victimhood, and that interpretation fed back into her experience. But one day I asked her, what if life is not punishing you? What if life is teaching you? What if each delay is not cruelty, but recalibration? What if each loss is not rejection, but initiation into a deeper calling? At first, she resisted. Her cynicism felt like safety, a shield against further disappointment. But slowly, she allowed a new story to plant itself within her. She began to see her setbacks as preparation, not proof of failure. She did not change overnight, but over months and years, her world began to shift. She discovered meaning where, before there was only randomness. She found opportunities hidden behind what once looked like obstacles. She entered into relationships not defined by wounds, but by worth. 2 years later, she stood in a place that once felt unimaginable, secure in a career she loved, married to a man who cherished her not for her pain, but for her wholeness. What changed? Not life itself, but the way she perceived it. She changed nothing, and yet everything changed. You already know this truth in your own life. Think of the last time you walked into a room expecting rejection. Didn't you shrink a little? Didn't your voice falter, your posture close, your energy radiate insecurity? And didn't others sense it, even unconsciously? That expectation shaped your behavior, and your behavior shaped the outcome. You created a prophecy that fulfilled itself. Now imagine the opposite posture. Imagine walking into a room expecting connection, expecting alignment, expecting that even if nothing happens today, something meaningful is being prepared for you. Do you see how different your presence would be? Your eyes would meet others with openness. Your body language would signal confidence. Your energy would radiate trust. And people, without even knowing why, would respond differently. This is not manipulation. This is resonance. Your inner posture sets the tone, and the world tunes itself to your frequency. Jung often used a metaphor of alchemy to describe psychological transformation. Alchemy was not just about turning lead into gold. It was about turning the lead of unconscious suffering into the gold of conscious meaning. When you act as if everything works out, you are performing a kind of inner alchemy. The same event that could harden you into bitterness becomes the very fire that purifies you into strength. The same rejection that could cement the myth of, I am unworthy, becomes a crucible that refines you into authenticity. The event does not change. The story does. And the story changes everything. Let's be clear. Acting as if everything works out is not about pretending pain does not exist. Jung would never endorse denial. Life is suffering, he reminded us, but it is also meaning. When you walk into a storm expecting to be broken, you crumble at the first gust. But when you walk into that same storm believing it is shaping you, something changes. You brace differently. You find strength you did not know you had. You emerge not untouched, but transformed. This is the essence of individuation. The process Jung described as becoming who you truly are. Individuation requires hardship, because it is through hardship that the unconscious forces us to confront our masks, our illusions, and our fears. But if you walk into hardship with a posture of, life is against me, individuation stalls. You become stuck in resentment. If you walk into hardship with a posture of, this too is for me, individuation unfolds. You become wiser, deeper, more whole. So what would it look like if you chose this posture today? What if every delay in your life were not punishment, but divine recalibration? What if every misstep were not failure, but disguised alignment? What if every closed door were a secret invitation to step through another one you would never have noticed otherwise? This is not fantasy. This is perception. And perception shapes reality. The world you will see tomorrow depends entirely on the story you believe today. I invite you to test this. For just one day, live as if everything conspires in your favor. When something small goes wrong, instead of saying, of course, this always happens, say, this too is aligning me. When a door closes, whisper to yourself, another is opening, even if I cannot see it yet. Watch what happens to your energy. Watch what happens to the way you carry yourself. And then watch, slowly but surely, how the world begins to meet you differently. Because in truth, the canvas of life may be the same for us all, but the colors you see depend on the lens you bring. And the lens you choose today will become the reality you live tomorrow. Inside every human being, Jung taught, lives a cast of inner figures, archetypes. They are not just stories we tell, but energies we embody. The child, the healer, the trickster, the wise old man, the mother, the hero, each has a voice, and each is waiting to be called forth. Most of us, without realizing it, live too long under the shadow of one figure, the victim. The victim is the one who whispers, "Why me? Why does life always treat me this way?" The victim posture feels safe at first, because it places responsibility outside of us. If the world is cruel, then it is not our fault when things fall apart. But in truth, the victim archetype drains us of power. It locks us in a cycle of resentment and helplessness, where nothing new can be born. To act as if everything always works out for you is to refuse the role of the victim and to summon instead the archetype of the hero. The hero does not deny suffering. In every myth, the hero begins in loss. Think of Odysseus, exiled from home. Think of Moses, banished into the wilderness. Think of Luke Skywalker, staring at twin suns as his home burns. The hero always starts with rupture, a betrayal, a wound, a loss. But here is the crucial difference. The hero takes the wound and makes it the doorway. Where the victim says, "Why me?" the hero says, "What is this teaching me?" Where the victim sees only punishment, the hero sees preparation. Where the victim collapses into despair, the hero steps into the unknown. This does not mean the hero does not feel fear. Quite the opposite. The hero archetype is defined not by the absence of fear, but by the decision to move forward despite it. Jung believed that myths are not just old stories. They are blueprints of psyche. When you hear the tale of a hero venturing into the dark forest, you are not only hearing about a character long ago, you are hearing the call of your own unconscious. The myth always unfolds the same way. The ordinary world is shattered by loss. The hero faces a choice: collapse into victimhood or answer the call to adventure. If they answer, they step into uncertainty, facing trials that forge them into something new. To act as if everything works out is to answer that call. It is to say, though I do not know how, though I do not know when, I trust that this path will shape me into who I must become. I once spoke with a man who had worked for decades in the same company. He believed the job would be his forever. It gave him identity, security, belonging. Then one day, without warning, he was laid off. At first he collapsed. His entire identity unraveled. He raged against the betrayal, drowned in fear. The victim archetype consumed him. Life, he believed, had abandoned him. But in time, he asked a different question. What if I have not been rejected but released? What if this is not the end but an initiation? That small shift in narrative opened something within him. He began to study again. He explored interests long buried. He connected with causes he cared about. Within 2 years, he launched his own consulting business, serving clients who inspired him, working with freedom he had never known. The layoff did not destroy him. It redirected him. And in doing so, it summoned the hero within. To live as a hero is not to erase the past. It is not to pretend the pain never happened. Jung taught that wholeness does not come from denying wounds, but from integrating them. The hero takes scars and turns them into sources of strength. Every failure becomes a teacher. Every heartbreak becomes a compass pointing toward deeper love. Every betrayal becomes fuel for greater clarity. This is what Jung meant by the process of individuation. You are not here to remain the small self, trapped in patterns of fear. You are here to become whole. And wholeness is always forged in the fire of struggle. The hero archetype is the one within you who dares to enter that fire, not to be consumed, but to be refined. Let's pause and make this distinction clear. The victim archetype asks, "Why is this happening to me?" and stops there. The question ends in despair. The hero archetype asks, "Why is this happening to me?" but continues with curiosity. What does this want to teach me? What new part of myself is being called forward? The victim looks backward and sees only loss. The hero looks forward and sees transformation. Both live inside you. Which one you summon determines not only how you feel in the present, but how your future unfolds. Life is not a battlefield where the universe seeks to crush you. Life is a crucible, a place where the fire is not meant to destroy you, but to burn away what you are not, so that you can remember who you truly are. When you walk into struggle as a victim, the fire feels like torture. When you walk into struggle as a hero, the fire feels like transformation. It does not make the pain less real, but it does give the pain meaning. And meaning is what allows the human soul to endure anything. There is another dimension to this. Others feel the energy you carry. When you live in victim mode, people sense the heaviness. They sense that your life has collapsed inward, that you are closed to possibility. They withdraw, not out of cruelty, but because the victim archetype radiates powerlessness. But when you carry the energy of the hero, even quietly, even imperfectly, people are drawn to you. They sense your integrity, your courage, your willingness to face storms without collapsing. They see in you a reminder of what is possible in themselves. The hero posture does not only change you, it changes the atmosphere around you. This is why acting is so powerful. When you act as if everything works out for you, you are not pretending. You are choosing the hero. You are saying, I will not collapse into victimhood. I will step forward, even trembling. I will trust that the fire is not my enemy, but my ally. I will live not as one abandoned by life, but as one carried by it. And here's the paradox. When you choose a hero within, you no longer need to know how everything will work out. You only need to trust that whatever happens will become part of your becoming. So ask yourself, which archetype are you living right now? Are you repeating the script of the victim, scanning the world for proof that life is against you? Or are you daring to summon the hero, the one who sees every trial as an invitation to become more whole? Jung would tell you, both are available to you, but only one leads to individuation. Only one leads to the deeper self. And the doorway to that path is simple, yet demanding. Act as if everything always works out for you, not because you deny pain, but because you trust that even pain has meaning. Not because life is easy, but because you are more than what tries to break you. This is a hero's posture. And once you choose it, your life will never be the same. There is a common illusion that paralyzes millions of people. The belief that before you act, you must first feel ready. That before you speak, you must first feel confident. That before you move forward, you must first feel certain. But Jung and modern psychology alongside him reveal the opposite. Action does not come after belief. Action creates belief. The psyche does not wait for you to feel whole before responding. It responds to the way you move, the way you speak, the way you show up in the world. Jung often insisted that the psyche is not only mental, it is embodied. Your body is not a machine separate from the soul. It is a living symbol, a vessel through which unconscious truths reveal themselves. Notice how your body changes with fear. Your shoulders collapse, your eyes avoid contact, your breath shortens. That posture doesn't just reflect fear, it deepens it. Your unconscious reads the signals of your body and says, we are not safe. And suddenly the world outside seems hostile, even when it isn't. Now notice how your body changes when you stand tall. Breathe deeply, look others in the eye. That posture doesn't just express confidence, it generates it. The unconscious reads your body again and says, we are strong, we are capable. And the world begins to echo that belief back to you. This is why acting as if everything works out is not wishful thinking. It is embodied invocation. Think of it this way. Your unconscious does not understand intellectual debate. It does not respond to the ego's endless arguments or rationalizations. It responds to symbols, rituals, gestures. When you dress as though your life matters, your unconscious listens. When you speak your own name with dignity, your unconscious listens. When you walk into a room with your head high, even if your knees are trembling, your unconscious listens. It says, if we are moving this way, it must be true. Let us align with it. This is why small rituals matter. Waking up and making your bed as if the day ahead will honor you. Eating slowly as if your body deserves respect. Speaking gently to yourself as if you are worthy of compassion. Each small gesture sends a message to the unconscious, and the unconscious responds by reconfiguring your inner state. Modern research has confirmed what ancient wisdom already knew. At Harvard, researchers studied what they called power poses. For 2 minutes, participants stood with open posture, shoulders back, chest expanded, chin lifted. Just 2 minutes. The results were remarkable. Testosterone, the hormone linked with confidence and assertiveness, rose. Cortisol, the hormone linked with stress and anxiety, dropped. And more importantly, participants became more willing to take risks. Their biology shifted to match the posture they embodied. Think about that. 2 minutes of standing differently literally changed the chemistry of the body, which then changed behavior. This is not magic. It is the psyche responding to embodiment. The lesson is simple but profound. Do not wait for confidence before acting. Act and confidence will be born. Do not wait to feel worthy before speaking your truth. Speak and worth will awaken. Do not wait for fear to vanish before stepping forward. Step forward, and fear will lose its grip. Confidence is not a prerequisite. Confidence is a consequence. In every myth, the hero does not wait until they feel ready. They answer the call trembling, uncertain, often terrified. But the moment they step onto the path, something ancient stirs within them. The unconscious rushes forward to meet their courage. Your life works the same way. This is why ancient traditions place such emphasis on ritual. Ritual is action charged with meaning. Lighting a candle, washing hands, placing one foot into the temple, speaking a vow aloud. These actions may seem small, but they carry symbolic weight. They tell the unconscious, a transformation is taking place. Align yourself with it. You don't need elaborate rituals to awaken this in your own life. Your daily actions are already rituals. The way you rise in the morning, the way you speak to your family, the way you carry yourself through the world. If you act as if life is against you, you rehearse defeat with every gesture. If you act as if life conspires in your favor, you rehearse destiny with every gesture. Some might say, but isn't this just faking it? Pretending? No. Faking is when you try to fool others. Acting as if is when you invite your deeper self to emerge. When you carry yourself with dignity. When you move as if life supports you. People feel it. They may not be able to name it, but they sense it. They are drawn not to a mask, but to resonance. You are not manipulating them. You are aligning with the part of yourself that has always been whole, and resonance is the natural result. Jung emphasized that individuation is not about wearing masks, but about becoming who you truly are. The paradox is that sometimes you must act as if before you can feel as if. The action becomes a bridge to authenticity. How many lives have been lost to waiting? Waiting until they feel confident. Waiting until the fear subsides. Waiting until the stars align. And in waiting, the years pass. Dreams die. The self remains dormant. Jung would call this stagnation, a refusal to call to individuation. The unconscious keeps whispering, but the ego insists, not yet. I'm not ready. But readiness never comes before action. Action is the womb of readiness. The moment you take a single step, apply for the job, speak the truth, begin the practice, leave the toxic relationship, you break the spell of inertia. You shift from being an idea to becoming an incarnation. Here's a hidden gift. When you move as if life conspires for you, the outer world begins to shift. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but subtly, steadily. People notice your presence. Opportunities align. Circumstances bend. Because you're no longer broadcasting fear, you're broadcasting trust. And life, like a mirror, reflects that trust back to you. So stop waiting. Stop rehearsing defeat in your posture, in your voice, in your daily rituals. Wake up and dress as if life expects greatness from you. Speak as if your words matter. Move as if the ground beneath your feet rises to meet you. The unconscious will hear. The world will notice. And slowly, steadily, the story you live will change. Because when you act as if everything always works out for you, the psyche listens. And once the psyche believes, nothing can remain the same. There is a paradox at the heart of life. The more you try to control it, the less it bends in your favor. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. The more you demand certainty, the more anxious and fragile you become. Most people live clenched, clutching to outcomes, gripping to expectations, rehearsing fears. They wake every morning trying to manage what cannot be managed, believing that if they just worry enough, plan enough, prepare enough, they can force life to obey them. But control is often just fear wearing a mask, and fear blocks the flow of life. To act as if everything always works out for you is not to manipulate destiny. It is not to force the world to obey your will. It is to surrender to a deeper rhythm. A rhythm Jung would say belongs not to the ego, but to the self. Jung drew a distinction between the ego, the small, conscious self that wants certainty, control, and safety, and the deeper self, the archetype of wholeness that connects us to the unconscious, to meaning, and to the larger order of life. The ego clings. The self trusts. The ego insists, I must make this happen. The self whispers, what is meant for me will find me. The ego resists uncertainty. The self embraces it as the doorway to transformation. When you act as if everything always works out, you are stepping out of the ego's obsession with control and into the self's posture of trust. You are saying, I will give my best, but I will not bind my peace to results. I will live with devotion, but I will not collapse when outcomes differ from my expectations. This is detachment, not indifference, but sacred trust. Think of the farmer. He tills the soil, plants the seeds, waters the ground. He gives his best. But after that, he does not dig up the seed every morning to see if it is growing. He does not scream at the sky, demanding rain. He trusts the unseen process beneath the soil. He knows the rhythm of seasons will do its work. The farmer's peace does not come from controlling nature. It comes from aligning with it. In the same way, when you act as if everything works out for you, you live like the farmer. You work with devotion. You give with integrity. You act with courage. And then you let go. You trust that the invisible roots are forming beneath the surface. You trust that the season of harvest will come in its time. Much of modern anxiety comes from the illusion of control. People believe that if they anticipate every possibility, rehearse every disaster, and grip tightly enough, they can prevent pain. But this only multiplies suffering. Anxiety is born not from uncertainty itself, but from the refusal to allow uncertainty. Jung would say this obsession is a symptom of the ego refusing the wisdom of the unconscious. The unconscious knows that life cannot be controlled. It knows that growth requires surrender. But the ego, terrified of letting go, clings harder, and in clinging, creates more fear. To detach is to break the cycle. To act as if everything works out is to say, I will not live clenched anymore. I will trust that I am part of something vast, something intelligent, something that moves even when I do not see it. When you stop gripping, you create space. You allow flow. You begin to see possibilities that forcing would have blinded you to. Doors open not because you demanded them, but because you allowed them. Think of a time when you wanted something so badly that you squeeze it with fear. Did it not often slip away? And think of a time when you let go, when you trusted, when you moved forward without obsession. Did life not surprise you with something better than you planned? This is a paradox. The less you force, the more you receive. The less you grip, the more you hold. The less you control, the more you align. I once mentored a young man desperate for work. He had ability, intelligence, experience, but he carried into every interview the posture of desperation. His body spoke it. His voice trembled with it. His energy radiated it. And interview after interview, he was rejected. He thought fate had cursed him. But the truth was this. He was closing the door before it even opened. He was begging life instead of trusting it. I told him, don't go into that room needing them to choose you. Go in as if you already belong. Go in simply to connect, to discover, to learn. He resisted. It felt impossible. But he was tired enough to try. The next week, he entered an interview differently. He changed nothing about his resume, nothing about his experience, only his posture. He smiled more. He listened more. And most importantly, he believed, just for a moment, that he belonged. He was hired on the spot. This was not manipulation. It was detachment. He stopped gripping the outcome. He stopped projecting desperation. He allowed flow, and life met him in return. Here is the deeper mystery. What you believe radiates long before you speak a word. The unconscious communicates not only through thoughts, but through presence, frequency, atmosphere. When you act as if life conspires for you, you emit a frequency of trust. Others feel it. Opportunities resonate with it. Doors respond to it. This is not magical thinking. It is resonance. You become a tuning fork vibrating with trust, and the world tunes itself to meet you. Jung would remind us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, always requires surrender. The ego must let go of its illusions of control, so that the self can guide the way. To live clenched in fear is to live in ego. To live as if everything always works out is to trust the self. It is to believe that beyond your small plans lies a deeper wisdom, one that will shape you even when you resist. When you surrender, you do not lose power. You gain alignment. You step into the flow of something greater than yourself. So let go, not because outcomes do not matter, but because your worth does not depend on them. Not because life will always be easy, but because life is always meaningful. Work with devotion, love with courage, act with integrity, and then release your grip. Trust that what is meant for you will arrive. Trust that even the storms are part of your unfolding. Trust that you do not need to force the river. You only need to flow with it. Act as if everything always works out for you. Not because you can predict the future, but because you can trust the process. Your posture is a prophecy. Your presence is a magnet. And your faith is a force that bends reality. Choose trust. Choose surrender. Choose to live unclenched. And watch as life rises to meet you.